We've been Habs fans forever, answering the call. Yo, I'm about to let it go to voicemail in a sec. Fuck!
Good morning, good afternoon, and or good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the No Respect Podcast. If you are new, welcome aboard. My name is Mackie, and join alongside me today, and as per usual, is Justin and Alex here to talk about the piss-poor performance of the Montreal Canadiens. What a tale of two cities here. Justin, starting with you, how you doing, bud?
Not great. Because obviously, as a Habs fan, you know, your mood kind of goes and swings with how the Habs are playing. So, not great, but hoping for better times in the future.
Alex, yourself.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Not too bad yet. We're at 5 losses in a row now. I think once we hit 10, you can ask me that question again. But I'm all right for now.
It is a condensed schedule, so I don't know if you put that into your analysis of how you're doing, but have you?
No, I have not. And you know what? Maybe that's the reason I couldn't finish my degree.
Fair enough. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, episode 9, out with the Claude, in with the do. I mean, we're going to go with a clothing change. We decided not to for obvious reasons, but yeah, today's a big episode, not only because of all that's happened this week for the Montreal Canadiens, but we also have a guest, and this guest is a special one. His name is the Scotian Canadien, the one and only. So super pumped. We already did the interview. It was a great time, so huge shout out to him. If you guys don't know who he is, we'll obviously do the shout outs during the interview, but super pumped to have him on. We get into a lot of the topical kind of discussion because he's a man with great analysis, and that's exactly why we left a lot of the meat of the show during this interview. So we're gonna maybe have a little bit of a shorter portion here with the boys until we get into the interview. So a couple of shout outs that I want to do because it's been a great week for that. A lot of interactivity. Is that a good word? Yes?
Yeah,
that's good.
For sure.
Yeah.
You know what?
Excellent.
Make up some words. It's all good.
I will. You guys realize that I use the word dissociation so often on this podcast and it makes no sense. Anyways, if you guys don't know, you'll find out. A couple of shout outs. Gibbs. He's on Twitter. God bless you. Emmanuel, a winning habit on Twitter. Our Ikase Hab. So not only Stuart, but we have a fan from Scotland. A huge shout out to you. Thank you for listening. If you are, he said that he was, so thank you. Of course, Stuart. Maxon Forti, Andrew from Calgary, A. Marchand on Twitter, and Mr. Shane, which we will get into to start off today's show. But I want to do a special shout out to our boy Legacy. Legacy's Corner on YouTube. If you guys don't know, Mr. Brandon Legacy is doing a podcast with the one and only Dutch Gretzky, Mr. Dale Weiss, which is incredible. Super pumped for him. He was the first collaboration that we did this season. Couldn't be happier. A guy that's just, all around good, super knowledgeable about the game. So congrats, guys. That's going to be super interesting to follow. I don't know if you guys had any comments on the Dutch Gretzky and their new Habs Tonight podcast.
Yeah, it sounds super cool. Obviously, I don't really know what it's going to be, what the format is, but Dale Weiss is awesome on Twitter these days. He's kind of just has no filter anymore since his career is, I guess, I don't know if he's officially retired, but his career is kind of finished. So it's great to kind of see a player with no filter, like we kind of see on the Spit and Chicklets podcast sometimes. So yeah, I'm down for hearing more of that stuff. Maybe if he's talking to some current Habs player, it's going to be awesome.
Absolutely.
And also, I just wanted to mention another shout out, Mathieu MMTL on Twitter. He's been he's always really active during the games and has all these takes and these funny little jokes, both in French and English. So
yeah, absolutely.
Good follow if you have a Twitter account there.
Yeah, and again, guys, for the shout-outs, we could be naming a lot today, and we're sorry if we missed you, but we'll catch you the next time for sure. One little known fact is that I think all of us, Alex, you were part of this team, if I'm not mistaken, but we had a little bit of a 3-on-3, it was 3-on-3 in Montreal team that was actually called the Dutch Gretzkies, and we dominated. Not going to lie, all right? We're not going to lie. We're lying.
What did we win? Like one game?
I think we won
100%.
like 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, it was brutal.
And we had to like call people up to actually come play for us because we had so many like flakers.
Yeah, it was brutal, dude.
Shout out to Matthew Klein.
Yeah. Huge shout out. Guys, coming back to the Montreal Canadiens here. Obviously, you know, we're starting off the show a little bit lighter, but it's been bad. Again, when we look at what this team has accomplished at the top of the season here, 10 games deep, I made a video saying that the Habs are a real deal. One person commented, "This aged well. I'll take the hit." Listen, I don't know. We're going to get into it again with Matt, Scotian Canadien. But I want to get maybe a quick take here for the top of the show and your thoughts on the play of the Montreal Canadiens, the coaching change. So I'll start with you, Alex. What do you think about this Habs team? And do you see something, a sign of light, maybe?
Here's my take. I'm going to look at the positive side of this week. I'm done. That's it. I'm done
What
talking.
What is the positive side?
So there's no positive
No,
side.
that's the joke. There's no positive, man.
But no Dom Ducharme. You're not happy for Dom Ducharme and Alex Burrows?
No, of course I'm happy for them. Yeah, hopefully this coaching change sparks something. Obviously, Claude Julien, a successful coach. He won a cup with Boston. He may be a bit past his times now. The league's changing towards a more offensive, skilled league. We saw it in Boston once they got rid of Claude Julien. I mean, he did win a cup there, but Bruce Cassidy, who I believe was Claude Julien's assistant, Boston totally transformed their style, more offensive. Players like Marchand, Bergeron exploded offensively. So hopefully we see that with Montreal, some of our younger guys, more talented guys. And but yeah, I mean, this week as a whole, I can't really bring up many positives. Allen played pretty well. Toffoli's still scoring. Drouin looks good, but overall wasn't too great.
What about yourself, Justin?
Yeah, for me, I think the coaching change is a huge positive for the Habs. I think the Habs are finally kind of going in the right direction in terms of the NHL and hockey as a whole, because I feel like the successful hockey teams are kind of going to the new coaches in the new era of hockey and not going back to kind of older coaches that came up in the times of enforcers and big-bodied, slow hockey players and stuff. So it's more about speed. It's more about young players, giving them an opportunity, and I think that's all positive stuff. It's obviously for a young team like the Habs, I think it's really positive to have a younger coach, a coach like Dominic Ducharme and also Alex Burrows to kind of give the Habs more. Like the young Habs players more opportunities and more creativity to kind of express themselves and learn and develop while still being effective in the NHL. So yeah, I'm happy that they didn't go back to kind of a Joel Quenneville or an older coach that kind of showed that they knew how to coach in the old NHL, but not necessarily in the new NHL.
Yeah, the new age coach. So I wanna follow up here, and I shouted him out at the top of the show. One guy that I forgot to shout out that I feel is very important, Eddie with a Y. I know, because there's a group in the UK there that's gonna come to Montreal. We're gonna get lit one day, so it's gonna be beautiful. But coming back to Shane, Shane, huge Habs fan, but also mental health advocate, ex-military correctional officer, and volunteer firefighter, gave us his take on the coaching change here by Ducharme. So I'm going to read it out here very quickly. So again, thank you, Shane, for this. As for the coaching change, it's a great move. Smart. Seems like the Habs like Dom and that had some say as to how to run offense at the beginning of the season. That's what Chantal Maccabi reported. He's young. He has a great core. And I think he can turn those difficulties into promise like the first 10 games. Burrows is interesting because his resume is small outside of playing. So I'll say that the jury is out in regards to him for me. Right now, for me, the big issue is communication in the D zone and the goalies. Basic passes are being missed, improper positioning in front of the net, the Kachuk goals, and attacking in the high slot and D-men to force turnovers are spots that I think need to be sorted out first. And then he goes into the speed of the neutral zone. Anderson games 1 to 10, and then attacking the net with purpose. And that's just for starters. So a huge thank you. A little bit of a goalie guru. So I think there's a very fair assessment here on some of the problems. A little bit of a take here on the coaching change. What I'll say is that I just think that it was mentioned in Marc Bergevin's presser, is that it's time for a new voice. And he was seeing too many tendencies that repeated themselves. And now there's no more excuse. There's literally no more excuse for the Montreal Canadiens. This team on paper is too good. I know that we have a young center depth. I know that we have some players that are not playing up to par, but it's too bad. Like, it's to a point where you can't let history repeat itself before it's too late, especially in a condensed schedule. So I'm really, at first I think that I was kind of shocked by the timing necessarily. Like I thought maybe he'd get a little bit more. I think a lot of people also thought that he'd get a little bit more time because they're still, as much as we're talking shit here about the Montreal Canadiens, they're still 9-6-5. It's not abysmal, but the reality is that in this condensed schedule, I can understand this move. Now, Ducharme, his coaching style and all of that good stuff, we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to those adjustments that he's known for. As we saw it at the top of this first game, a couple of things here and there that make the difference. I like some of the things that he said at his first presser. So again, maybe your thoughts on how do you think he's going to approach this Canadiens team in terms of fixing it?
Well, just for me, in terms of, you were saying you were kind of shocked and you thought maybe he would have more time. I think last season, having 2 8-game losing streaks and not making the playoffs last year after a very promising season before, I thought the writing was on the wall. And even last season, I thought they could have fired him at one point during the season. So, I mean, yeah, Claude Julien, like he's obviously, I don't know him personally, but he's shown that he's a great guy and he's a good coach. He's won a Stanley Cup, but I think his time was just up. And like you said, and like Marc Bergevin said, a new voice was needed. And obviously a younger voice, and I think that'll give more kind of less structure to the team in terms of what Dominic Ducharme will bring, but more kind of will and creativity to the players to really kind of express themselves and be able to show their potential, not through a system of play, but more through their own kind of expression and their own skill.
Alex, anything to add on that? Sorry, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, touching on, hopefully for me, what the biggest change is going to be is him letting the offense flow a little bit. Like, I understand that Montreal's a depth team. We don't have these superstars. But you have guys like Drouin, Anderson, Toffoli. Tatar is a skilled guy. So in your top 6, Suzuki, Kotkaniemi as well, right? You have these guys who have the ability to beat players 1-on-1 or on the rush beat players 2-on-2, 3-on-2, 3-on-3. That I think we might want to see them just try things a bit more, right? Especially a guy like Drouin. You see him when he has confidence, when he's allowed to try to take guys on. Yeah, he might turn over the puck a bit more, but unfortunately, that's what you have to do to get rewards, right? So yeah, I hope we just see a bit more of a fun offensive play style from the team. As much as I want them to win, I do also want to enjoy watching the games. It was nice 4 or 5 years ago when we had success winning these 2-goal games, but at some points it was kind of boring. Yeah. So I hope we just get to see a little bit more of that he might be known for.
Yeah, and one thing to mention here, and when you glance over it here, it's a pretty important detail, but we could be still seeing Claude Julien on the bench here if it were not for that absolutely atrocious call to take back the goal of Brendan Gallagher against the Ottawa Senators. Like, this is a big, big problem here. Like, I can't believe that this, like, I don't know what, maybe I'm a Habs fan and I'm biased as shit. I know that's the facts. I know that's the case. But at the same time, like, it's just, when you lay it out in facts, especially with the comments from Brendan Gallagher, is that you get a video at the beginning of the season that everybody gets. This is goaltender interference. This is what you're not supposed to do. And he's saying that he's watched this video. The refs watch this video. Everybody and their fucking cousin watches this video. And they still can't get the consistency right. And this could have been a big thing for the Habs team that is fragile right now. You know, like, for me, I don't know. I want to get your takes really quickly on this because it's a big point, maybe not too long, but, you know, what do you guys think? Is this like just Habs bias, or do you think this was ridiculous?
Well, for me, I mean, I obviously think the goals should have stood. And like, you can talk about Brendan Gallagher obviously made contact with the goalie, but he was kind of like shoved in by the Ottawa defenseman.
I want to say edged.
Yeah, that's a great word. That's a great term. But also, Matt Murray had about 14 hours to set himself back up. Not to mention the fact that fucking Brendan Gallagher had a defenseman on top of him and still had the time to get up and tip the puck in the net. So I mean, there's a few problems. There's a problem with goalies taking the liberty to because they know they'll get the call, they take their time, and they kind of, Carey Price is one of the best goalies at this, of just once they get touched by a player, they take as much time as possible to get back up and get set back up, because they know if they don't make it in time, the refs or Toronto will just call it back. Yeah. So that's one kind of problem that I think the NHL should fix. Another kind of thing I thought about is that as much as we get these calls and these controversial calls from Toronto, from the refs, we don't necessarily get the full explanation as to why. Mm-hmm. So what I thought of and what I'd want to see from the NHL is to actually broadcast and talk and hear what the refs are saying, what Toronto in the goal judging fucking underground basement that they're in, what they're saying, so we understand their thought process and what we can expect when it comes to challenging a goal, or if a goal will happen or not. Because it seems like what they're doing is flipping a fucking coin and just seeing where it lands, and okay, this is in, this is out. So I mean, we saw it with the Jesperi Kotkaniemi goal that called back 2 against Toronto, and I know Toronto had a call that went against them as well with Joe Thornton. So it's just the inconsistency for me that's such a big problem. And I think really, if we understood what their thought process was and how they worked out these reviews, it would kind of help us at least hold them accountable if they make a bad decision, and it would reduce the transparency and just let us really know what's going on and what to expect, and really make it more black and white, because it's the most gray thing I've ever seen in my life at this point.
Justin, not to get political, but your idea is like communism. It's good on paper, but it just doesn't work in real life.
But why?
Because first of all, the NHL does not want to be held accountable. They want the fucking gray area. They don't care if people are pissed, because if they give you a laid out explanation and it's trash, they have the laid out explanation that's going to be on review and replayed, and you're going to be like, this was the explanation? They don't want that. Why would they want that?
But as Brendan Gallagher said, they're ruining the product of the greatest game on earth that they're making into this shit show of just, the reason behind it is because we don't know why. Like, if you could tell me why, and you could explain, okay, Brendan Gallagher, this happened and he didn't have enough time to set back up, and we saw this all in kind of real time, the ref could explain it at the time and place, then I'd be okay with it. At least I'm getting explanation with a rule that they're pointing to. But they're literally just saying no goal, goalie interference. That's it.
I think you're answering the question, though. It's the fact that there's a gray area. Because that's the problem.
If there's a gray area, I want an explanation as to why they're making the decision.
Yeah, I mean, to me, though, the issue is it gets so complicated just because, like, some people are going to argue Gallagher was shoved into the goalie. Some are going to argue that he kind of leaned into him. Then others are going to say, yeah, Matt Murray had time to get reset, but when he's on the ground, he loses track of the puck. So by the time he's standing back up, he has no idea where the puck's going to be coming from, right? Then like the 360 Matt Murray did is like, oh, well, it was more efficient for me to push off that way. That's why I spun that way, right? Like
style points.
The issue with hockey is that it's so, like, those lines aren't black and white. Like if I can relate it to soccer with VAR and stuff, and mostly what comes up, there's still so much controversy around it. But the offside rule, they do broadcast on like the TV broadcast that you're watching when they're reviewing this offside call. They do broadcast what the video referee is looking at, and you can actually see them draw those lines out to see if it's actually offside or not. And there's still controversy around it, but at least that's a black and white offside rule. I think with goaltender interference, it's so subjective. Like Justin said, Price is good at it taking time to get back up. Well, if you say, oh, they have 3 seconds to get back up, but what if he gets knocked down behind the net or something? Or what if he gets knocked down and ends up on the side of the net? Like, I don't know. I don't see how you can start deciding those rules.
Yeah.
I do think it was the wrong call.
Yeah.
But I don't think we can get into this whole like explaining exactly why, because it's just going to go down. Like at some point, everything's going to be goaltender interference, or everything's not based off these rules you said.
Yeah, and the other thing is that we lost Justin for a little moment here. He's coming back, but what I was just going to say, Justin, welcome back. Don't worry about it. We're still live here. But what I was just going to say is that, from the other side, okay? If I'm going to try to remove as much bias as I can here from the Montreal Canadiens fandom in me, in my soul, you can argue that the fact that Matt Murray was bumped and had to do the 360 and couldn't find the puck is because of Brendan Gallagher. But at what point do you fucking let this loose and just say like, well, yeah, you have as much time as you want? What really, again, that was the max that I could go removing my bias. But coming back, Brendan Gallagher literally on his back like a whale, like beached whale, coming back up to deflect and find the puck. Like, you can't tell me that you don't have that time. So, we'll move on here because it could be a very long segment for this particular moment here. But I just, there's something to be said because I feel just like the refereeing, we haven't necessarily spoken about each game here, but, the Jeff Petrie interference last night, a bit questionable. There's things like that. We talk a little bit about, there's a gray area here that I would like to see removed. And I think that everybody can agree that at some point, you hope that the product is going to be salvaged by a little bit more concrete rules. That's all I'll say here.
Let me just, to end this, and I don't know if it'll kind of sabotage the ending, but do you think the NHL, like in an ideal world, do you think it'd be better if there was some sort of like AI or something determining every penalty or any goalie interference or whatever by what it actually is by the rule book, instead of having like the human error aspect? And like we've seen in not only Habs games, but other games as well, like refs missing calls, with calls like makeup calls happening where obviously you're calling more penalties for one team. So you're saying, okay, I have to look for a penalty for this team. Do you think it'd be better if everything was cut and dry and we saw every penalty as it should be?
I think no. I'm gonna go quickly here. No, I like human error. I just think that there's too much of it right now. That's the problem for me right now, is that the refereeing is just to a point where it's so wide of a gap between certain plays and others. Like, you need to narrow that gap, and I'm okay with the human error. But I don't want AI in it, and then it doesn't take into context. It doesn't do all of those things. So that's all I'll say here. Alex, I don't know if you have one last quick comment here before we move on to another big topic.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. It takes out a lot of what's fun about the game, right? If you start getting that meticulous about penalties and stuff, like you said, maybe the range when it comes to hooking and slashing and stuff. But I think if you start reviewing every little single thing, it's a slippery slope at that point where I think every team would have 20 power plays per game, right? Get a bit.
Yeah, correct. And speaking of slippery slopes, ladies and gentlemen, if you're waiting for the interview with Scotian Canadien, it's going to come right after this, but we need to talk about it. Carey Price, slippery slope, a downward slope. We spoke about Carey Price at the beginning of this season. The narrative is quickly changing for this player on the Habs. $10.5 million for, a long period of time. I can't remember if it's 7 years left or 8 years left. I think it's 7 now. But we need to talk about it. Now, the narrative has become that Carey Price is no longer, people have left the ship of Carey Price right now. Now, I want to get your takes on, is this fair? So I'm going to construct my question a little bit more concretely. Is Carey Price the same goaltender that we knew that is going through a rough patch again? Or is he no longer the Carey Price that once dominated this team and carried this team for many, many seasons? Alex, you first.
No, I think there's absolutely no way it's the same Carey Price. It's been, I think, 4 seasons now since he's performed at that level. A rough patch, I'd say fine if it's been a couple months, maybe one off season, but it's 3.5 to 4 years now of underperformance. When you look at other goalies around the league, it seems like every goalie is fair to criticize except Carey Price. It seems like when it comes to Price, it's always just a rough patch or he's going to bounce back. And then he does for a month and everyone says again he's the best. And then just downhill again. And they're like, oh, we'll wait till the playoffs, wait till next year. He'll be good again. We trust him. I love Carey Price. He has the talent, but he is getting older. I don't want to say his heart's not in it anymore because I don't know him. And that's probably not true. I'm sure he's just as competitive as he was. But I think players have declines that sometimes you can't explain. A good analogy I saw online is let's say a player like Kucherov or something starts putting up 40, 50 points for the next 4 years. People aren't going to say, well, he scored 130 4 years ago. He's still the best winger in the game, right? Sometimes players get worse. It happens, and I think we've reached that point with Price. I still love him. I hope he bounces back, but for now, he's definitely not justifying the contract. And I think we have to stop playing favorites with him. I think we have to give Allen his chance now since he's stepped up.
So that's a deep cut, but fair answer, to be honest. Justin, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think for this season, I totally agree that he's not playing up to par at all. And I think he could do with a little time off and having Jake Allen come in for maybe 3-4 games or something to just really take the load off and make him reset. We've heard in the past in interviews and stuff where he does like to have those kind of reset moments in seasons where his game isn't quite on. So he'll spend time in practice with Stefan Waite and maybe work on some things, just get ready mentally, get reset mentally, and come back. I don't think it's the end for Carey Price, first of all, because I mean, if it is 10.5 for 6 more years, it's pretty brutal. But on the other hand, I think obviously if we look just back past to the bubble, he was at that elite level. And I know that he has that in him for sure. But I think part of it really is, and this might be a cop-out, but the fact is scoring is way up in the NHL. And if you look back at the goalies in 2014 or 2015, I don't think you can name me a lot of goalies that have been as elite as they were in 2013, 2014 that are are at that level still now. I don't know if you guys can. Like we see like with Holtby, Lundqvist, Tuukka Rask even, like they've all kind of stepped down. They haven't been as dominant. We're not seeing the kind of career elite goalie like we saw with like Martin Brodeur or like a Patrick Waugh and stuff like that.
Isn't
so
that
I think
what's
that
scary,
does have
though?
an effect, and I mean it's obviously scary, but there is kind of an explanation for it. Like scoring is way up. It's not just that Carey Price is just playing like shit in a league where everyone's scoring 3 goals a game. You know, like
Yeah, but
I'm just making obviously I'm making some excuses for Carey Price, but
Yeah.
I think there is some stuff you have to take into account as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm alongside. I like, again, the best of both worlds here. I'm going to agree with both of you that I think that what worries me is you do have goalies that can change a game, and that we spoke about this before. Is that for me, Carey Price at 10.5 million needs to be that game changer. And what's problematic is that at 10.5 right now, you're paying for 10.5 million for not even an average goaltender. It's a below average goaltender. And,
True.
you saw in Ottawa, there's some key saves that he made, some big key saves that he made. And then in the Winnipeg Jets game and even that Ottawa game that I'm speaking of, he's letting in some goals that are backbreakers. And you can't have that. It's like, for me, it's as if you have like an Austin Matthews that's scoring 2 goals a game, but it's letting in that's giving away stuff that's going to make the other team score. And that's why it's difficult for me to make the same comparison, because the goaltending position is a completely different one from a player. But like you, Justin, I think Carey Price still has it in him, but it's impossible to say that this goaltender is the best in the world, because the best goaltenders in the world are also consistent. And now it's been to a point where you're just banking on the fact that Carey Price might show up for a game, whereas before, every night, Carey Price was there. And that's what's difficult right now with this whole situation. So I agree with you guys. Let's go with Allen. This is the time where the Habs need wins. You can't deal with the fact that, your goalie, your star goaltender, even though he's, I think the big difference is that, Carey Price has been given the benefit of the doubt. Now we're to a point where there's no benefit of the doubt to be given because of the roster in front of him. They're not playing great, but they're not playing to a point where it's complete, it completely merits the fact that he's like this. Go ahead, Justin.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, Seattle is coming into the league. Is it next year, right?
Yeah.
So obviously Carey Price has a no move clause, no trade clause, all that jazz. Do you try and negotiate with him to get him to waive his no move clause, to potentially expose him to the expansion draft for Seattle? Who, by the way, have a really sick logo. I'm kind of excited.
Didn't he steal it from like a restaurant or something? Anyways, go ahead.
A restaurant.
Applebee's, was that it?
Yeah, that's it. Alex?
If you're Seattle and Price is playing like this, why would you want that?
Cap space, leader type of thing.
But it's also like
you'll say Price leader.
But if the Habs kind of figure out a deal, like a kind of hockey deal where they're like, take Carey Price and we'll like scratch your back later or something, like one of those things where it's like, don't take a I don't know who on our team, don't take Nick Suzuki or something, and then but anyway, it's a hypothetical, obviously, but
I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully he does bounce back. But I think with goalies, it's just, I don't know. It seems like there are more good goalies in the league now than there were in those days. I think Price will have good games, good weeks, good months, like he showed in the bubble. But I think it's just, I don't know, it's hitting me more now that I don't watch many other teams. Like there are goalies that come up and have good months, good years all the time. Good bubbles like Thatcher Demko, Khudobin in Dallas. This is his first year as a starter now because he had an insane year last year. I don't know if goaltending's just changed and we got caught at the wrong time having to pay this guy. There's no way you can let Carey Price walk after the seasons he had in Montreal. Like, people are saying, like, oh, why did Bergevin give in to his contract demands? Well, it's like, well, like,
you can't
yeah, you're
argue.
going to come in as a GM and let Carey Price walk the same year, like Subban's leaving it. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. But I don't know. I feel like Price has been blocked from criticism for so long.
Yeah.
And
resting on his laurels a bit.
I hope we don't go too far the other way now. Like, as much as I bash him in private group chats and stuff, like, he still should be supported and he can be a good goalie. But I think we're going to have to live with that cap hit for, 6 more years now? I don't see a way that he's moving. Like, it's not, I don't think that's doable.
So I'm sorry to interrupt here. Justin, did you have those technical problems with Alex's audio as well?
Yeah, but I'm sure it won't be a problem.
Okay, excellent. Just wanted to know. So I lost you a little bit there, Alex, but I caught your drift 100%. You know, like, you make great points. The details of those points are fuzzy for me right now, but the point being, for me, is you know, $10.5 million for a goalie. You gambled. Like, you gambled on Carey Price if you're Marc Bergevin. You know, I don't think that was a gamble. Like you said, like, you can't not go in on Carey Price, this guy who carried you night in, night out for seasons on seasons on seasons. There's no way to predict this if you're a GM. So for me, it's not on the GM really. It's a question of, you know, there are some times you bet on the wrong horse. And I really hope I'm not at the point where I think that's the case. I think Carey Price still has enough time in his career to shut up the haters. I really do believe that. However, there is a strong possibility that this is just my optimism as a Montreal Canadien fan, and people might disagree with me, but there is a strong possibility that, you know, that is the case, and he is no longer who he is, and Marc Bergevin bet on the wrong horse. And I'm sorry to say, but that's going to ruin the Montreal Canadiens. For you know, you're going to be stuck with that contract, and if he's like this, there's things that are going to need to be done that are going to hurt this team and are going to delay any type of success that we thought we would get maybe in the nearer future. That's all I'll say.
I mean, yeah, I think we're kind of blowing it a bit out of proportion. Like, I think obviously he's not playing like a 10.5 million goalie. Like, no one thinks that. And to your point about kind of Marc Bergevin made a bet at the time, like you said, it wasn't a bet. It was, I think every single person who thought about that contract said the exact same thing. Says that that's an expensive contract, but it's going to be worth it because he's the best goalie in the world at the time. They're saying that. Now, Carey Price is 33 years old. So for a goalie, I think he still has a lot of time left to be good.
Yeah.
And I don't think this kind of sample size really shows where he's at in his career. I think he still has a lot to give. And maybe his best days are behind him. But he's still, I think he still can be as solid as ever. And I don't know what it is. Like, last year we saw the same thing where he had a month where he was just trash. And then he came back and he played amazing. So it's like he goes through these kind of slumps, and it's inexplicable. It's frustrating, obviously, as a Habs fan, because I was yelling at my TV the other day when he let these goals in. Like, I'm like, these, and I'm the biggest Carey Price apologist. Like, I have a Carey Price jersey on right now. I was gonna put the Drouin on this episode, but I put on the Carey Price one.
Yeah, it's good choice. Topical.
I was yelling at Carey Price, and usually I'm the biggest Carey Price apologist. So as much as we're frustrated at him, I'm sure he's just as frustrated at himself, and he knows that he can play so much better and he can just be so much more solid. So I'm willing to put it on the line. I'm saying maybe it's a bold take, a hot take, but I think Jake Allen's gonna take a couple starts, and Carey Price is gonna come back, and he's gonna be just as solid as we wanted him to.
I honestly agree with you. I agree with you. However, you need to present the other side, which is also a viable.
No.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the candor, but
I'm just saying, like, there is no other side, because whether we like it or not, we're stuck with this guy.
Well, there
it's
is
not
another
gonna
side
happen.
that it's going to be brutal. That's my point.
Of course. But I'm saying that, like, we've made our bed. Now we have to lie in it, right? Like, we signed this guy. We've basically signed him as a Habs lifer. He's not leaving. He's happy at home. He has 3 kids. There's no moving him.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what you guys think, but let us know, because this is a big topic. So we'll move on here. We're gonna I think go straight to the interview, because it's about time where we start speaking about the Habs with Scotian Canadien. We get into a couple of the other problems that this team has had, because it's not all on Carey Price. We still love you, Carey. If you're listening, we apologize, and still,
He's not listening.
If you want to go for dinner, whatever, let us know. Okay. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to the great interview with the Scotian Canadien. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back now with the man of the hour, Mr. Scotian Canadien, the man who is all over my YouTube homepage, who started his journey in 2018 and is here to talk Habs with us here at the No Respect Podcast. First and foremost, welcome to the show, Matt. How are you today?
I'm good, man. That was a great intro. I appreciate it. I'm very excited to do this. I took note of your guys' podcast right away, just based off the graphics, man. They're fucking amazing. Whoever did those, like, really impressive. I come from a graphic design background, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, man, that's some perfect branding. So kudos there. And I've listened to a few episodes, love it, and hear nothing but good things all through the Habs community about you guys. So excited to be here.
Well, thank you, man. Really appreciate the kind words. And again, the pleasure is all ours. We've been dipping our toes a little bit more heavily in collaborations. We started off with Legacy. We spoke a little bit about Legacy, but he's starting a fucking podcast with Dale Weiss, which is insane.
Crazy, eh? Yeah.
Actually crazy. We also had Stuart from England, which was a great interview, and really happy for our third collaboration to be bringing the guy that we've been watching from YouTube. And I'm not going to lie, dude, a pretty big inspiration in terms of, just putting yourself out there, being honest, and really good analysis that's level-headed. And it's sometimes hard to be level-headed, and which I've always respected from you. So what we want to do to start off today's show, before I continue stroking you here, is just want to go through a couple of rapid-fire questions. Not actually a couple, quite a few, a multitude of rapid-fire questions.
Sure.
Because this is the way that people that maybe don't know Scotian Canadien, which if you don't know, of course, go and follow him on YouTube. He's also on podcasts now, so it's great. But yeah, just want to set the tone, want to contextualize our guests. So I'll start off, okay? This is the first rapid fire question. So again, rapid fire, let's keep it maybe to a sentence, maybe a word, whatever you feel the most natural thing. Yeah, there you go. Phenomenal. All right, so first question. Favorite Hab of all time?
Oh, Larry Robinson. And I wasn't even alive when he was playing.
Beauty. Justin, go ahead.
Favorite non-Hab of all time?
Oh, God damn, I was not ready for this. Jesus Christ. Joe Sakic.
Oh, good one.
Beauty. Alex.
Right? Here, a tougher one. PK Subban or Shea Weber?
Oh, man. PK Subban in his prime was incredible, but right now, definitely Shea Weber.
Fair enough. I like it. Your worst hockey take ever?
Oh, man, that Drouin was going to hit 80 points in his second season with the Habs. Fucking, there's a flub.
I think we're all wishing that.
Yeah, 100%. Just so you know, mine was Scott Gomez would bounce back. So that's a little bit about me. Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
Habs player that you wished reached his potential.
Galchenyuk. So hyped on Galchenyuk.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good. Yep.
Alex still thinks he's gonna reach it.
Like I
With
said
the
last
Marlies.
week, It's the only Habs shirt I have. Man, Galchenyuk was my favorite player for so long. But just so sad watching him disappear, basically.
Has he
Yeah.
even
All
played
right.
yet for the Leafs?
No,
I don't think so. No.
That's-
No, not yet. Brutal.
Right,
All right.
I guess quick one just off the top of your head. Who's the most obscure Habs player you can think of?
Kilger? What, Chad Kilger?
I
That's
like
a
it.
good one.
Fucking love
Yeah.
it. Love it.
I like Andreas Dackel. That's
Ovechkin or Crosby?
Crosby. Easy.
Like it.
oh, sorry. McDavid or McKinnon?
Oh God. I get roasted for this, but I go McKinnon every time. I have to. He's from here and he's on that tier, but McDavid's incredible. But I gotta stick with my boy McKinnon.
I
Love it.
Legacy said he picked McDavid and he said he would take some flack from his
It's
like the
East
locals
Coast
around
roots.
him. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All
All right. Who do you think is a bigger rival, the Leafs or the Bruins?
Bruins. Yeah.
Bruins.
The Leafs rivalry is just fake. There's just no true animosity there
There's no foundation, really.
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
That's good. Skill or heart?
Man. Skill.
Like it. Like it. All right. This one's a good one. Justin, finish it off.
Kotkaniemi or Suzuki?
Kotkaniemi or Suzuki. Jeez. I'm gonna go KK. I still
love
believe
it.
in him. I
Wow,
still believe in
really?
him.
I like
Give
it.
him 2 years and he's gonna be a beast.
You see the jersey, buddy? You see the jersey? That's it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So now the folks back at home, you kind of get a taste of Scotian Canadien. Of course, it's late. It's Sunday. And he answered those beautifully. So we're going to get into some real shit here. This week is probably the perfect week to set this interview up because there's been so much that's been going wrong. So many changes, such as Claude Julien leaving. Just so you know, Scotian, I'm going to call you Matt, but it's out with the Claude, in with the do for our episode name. So there you go. So I want to get your take here because I know that you're a big Mooseheads fan and you got to see Ducharme live. And if I'm not mistaken, in your last video, you actually saw him win the Memorial Cup with Drew and Nathan McKinnon and all that good stuff. So I want to get into your take here is why is Ducharme maybe what the Habs need right now? And what do you think he's going to do much differently than Claude Julien?
I definitely think, and we've heard it a bunch now, it's a fresh voice, and I think the guys needed that. But I definitely think it's a voice that the younger players are going to relate to a lot more than Claude, especially the really, really young guys like KK and Romanov and Suzuki. And it was just getting stale with Claude, and it's just lack of adjustments, and that's a specialty that Ducharme has. He's had some comeback wins in his past in the junior coaching career. And it's nice to have a coach for once in a long time that's kind of a offense first coach. The defense isn't going to go to the wayside, but at the same time, I think he's really going to bring out the best in the players. Where it's like it seemed that guys would come here and they'd have all the skill in the world, and then it would be like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not promoted. It wasn't allowed to flourish, and then you see guys struggle. You know what I'm saying? And Ducharme's not that guy. I think he's going to have good one-on-one relationships with individuals and try to bring out the skill sets of a lot of different players.
So I had one follow-up question because this is one thing that really stood out when I was listening to Ducharme speak. And this is during one of his interviews here at, I think it was, the day that he was hired. I can't remember exactly. But one thing that really stood out was that he didn't use the word systems. He likes the word rules that you follow. So that means that it's a little bit more relaxed, and he likes for players to express themselves. So I don't know if there's anything specific from your side in terms of like those in-game adjustments. Like I think one of the things that I noticed right off the bat in his first game was that he wanted to start Anderson out there with Danault and Gallagher. So to send maybe a little bit more energy, correct? So
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what else do you think that this guy is going to be bringing potentially right now, given the circumstance of the Habs? Like I know that we discussed, the one-on-one kind of relationships that might be better and stuff like that, but more from a tactical standpoint, if anything that you saw in his time in Halifax.
Well, I think he'll have no problem rolling with the hot hand. Like if there's a guy that's hot, I think he'll double shift him, like no question. Or if there's a line that's hot, the minutes will go up there. I think that'll be a big one rather than just um, not just rolling 4 lines just to do it and spread the minutes out evenly, but utilize who's going on any given night. I think that'll be big for Dom in Montreal.
Love it. Love it. Justin, Alex?
Yeah, well, I
If
think
there is
what
a
you said
question.
about like the creativity, like it's really, I mean, players sticking to a system, it works in certain circumstances, like we saw with kind of Mike Terrien's system of just kind of like playing defense and being there and buying into just working on the system and stuff. But at the end of the day, if you have skilled players like Anderson, like Drouin and stuff, you want them to be creative and not be kind of held back by a system or by a certain kind of things that the coach tells them that their hockey instincts don't want them to do. So I really think that was kind of a very encouraging thing to hear, that he wants the players to kind of be creative, express themselves, and kind of come up with their own ideas, at least to a certain extent, in the offensive zone. So, I mean, I think we saw some of that in the first couple games of Ducharme's career, I guess, with the Habs as a head coach. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more.
A couple of things I want to touch on that you mentioned with like riding the hot hand and the ice time. I think Suzuki hit, was it 21 minutes last night? So I could definitely see that he will be riding the players who are playing better, giving those offensive talents more chances, more opportunities. Hopefully this leads to Kotkaniemi getting a bit more ice time too, who's been playing pretty well the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if we want to dive into it yet, but like you mentioned, how it'd be a more offensive looking, not system like Mackie said, but is a more offensive leaning coach, which I think at this point with how our goaltending's been, that maybe we have to start leaning that way since we don't seem to be able to rely on the goaltending to bail us out anymore. Maybe Allen can step up and be huge, but I think this defensive system, if Price isn't playing like Carey Price, won't really work. So hopefully he can help these offensive talents flourish, and kind of we can start leaning that way and start winning games with offense rather than defense.
I mean, at the end of the day, when we kind of have to have the skill to back that up too, though. And I mean, I think we do have skill on our team for sure. But I think I don't know. I don't want to like put him down or anything, but I think Ducharme would maybe benefit with a team that has more of those like superstar players like Toronto or something, or like in on the Mooseheads when he had Drouin and McKinnon. So I'm not saying it's not going to work or anything. I'm just saying that the Habs will still have to play that kind of. I think it's going to be a kind of hybrid of being good defensively, but also having those kind of moments where they play more creatively in the offensive zone.
I agree with you. Something I was thinking about today is in response to how we're seeing him handle the defense pair so far. People are up in arms that there hasn't been many changes and whatnot. Well, I'd like to see guys, depending on where the face-off is and where they're going to be playing, maybe the D pairs change. So there's nothing wrong with Weber and Sherratt being out there together, but maybe they start in the D zone. But then when you have an O zone face-off, Chuck Romanov with Weber and try and get a cycle going right off the draw. Something like that. A little bit more creativity than just sticking with, set lines and set pairs and just adjust. And a big thing is love to see them play a different style depending on who they're playing on. Like we under Claude the last couple games, we see them play a passive defensive game, and it's like, let's open it up a bit here. This is the Sens that they don't have a decor that's going to completely shut us down if we want to experiment, that type of deal, right?
Absolutely, and I'm gonna come in with a shitty analogy here, but the way I see Claude,
You're known
and
for
I
them.
see, yeah, I am. So the way I see Claude and the way I see Ducharme, at least the way that I would categorize them, is that like Claude Julien is more of like a baker, Now, I'm a man who enjoys his calories, so this is why I'm coming into food here. So, Claude, being a baker, really sticks to the book. So you got to follow the recipe to the point to be a great baker. And he doesn't try to do anything different. But Ducharme is a chef. Ducharme comes in, does the eye test, he tastes it, he puts in a little bit of salt, he puts in a little bit more of olive oil, all of these things. And what I'd love to see, I'm sorry if I'm going real fucking off the board here, but
I
I'm
love it.
I'm curious to get your take here. Is that like what I really liked? I don't know. It's a very small sample size, but do you see like guys like Jonathan Drouin, because he's already had a very strong season, and I think listening to your videos and stuff like that, I saw that. I know that that he was good last season, and then there was injuries that struck and maybe kind of stumped his progression from that standpoint. But the first game that he played there in Winnipeg, yeah, I don't know if it was just the fact that like and even after the game, his comments, I was like,
Mm,
fuck. Like this
that was
this could
different.
be, yeah, it's a different vibe. It's just like less like, kind of like in his place, trying to be timid. Like he literally at one point, I think he said it in French, it's like, I don't care if we're not feeling well. We gotta get results. Like it's too much. So I'm curious, like, do you think that there's anything there from a Duchamp perspective that's changing maybe the way that these young players are going to come in and tackle the responsibilities, since that Claude was a little bit of that old school guy?
Yeah, I think it was the game, the last Julien game actually. Towards the end, Suzuki started getting a bit of energy going, and then once Ducharme took over, he's kind of carried it on. And the same thing with Drouin. It's he's having a good season already, like you mentioned, but the big thing was the comments after the game, complete attitude change. It was like he wasn't the new guy anymore. It just seemed like he didn't get a he had been here for so long, and he still hadn't kind of taken over any kind of leadership role. But to hear him make those comments after, it's like he knows that the guy in charge is going to back him up if he says something like that. And it's not like it was false either. So
Yeah.
I was really impressed by those comments. But I definitely think the young players are going to benefit. We've seen Romanov already like looking, getting the confidence back
Yeah.
since Ducharme took over. So I'd love to see him build on it. Like rung one off the crossbar last night. That would have been a huge momentum swing for us if he got that in, and for him.
Yeah, 100%. The last game, I mean, like it was as much as we can talk about the overtime, the selection of getting Dano to win the face-off. He explained it pretty well. So, that was the part where I was like, okay, get it. And it's also like you said, like it's a fresh start here, for this group. You're trying to give a little bit of that benefit of the doubt, like, okay, let's do a reset. So I know that nobody's necessarily excited to get Phil Dano out, but the explanation helped, at least for me. But I'm curious now, like coming back to the Habs as a whole, because right now, obviously, fucking shit has hit the fan. It's not going well. And even though, we saw a spark here last game against the Jets, and we saw a little bit of that team that was once at the top of the season, what do you think here, if there was a diagnosis to give? I want to start from offense, defense, like all three areas. Like what are the biggest problems for you if you can sum it up for each position? Obviously the goalie position is going to be an easy one, but um that type of diagnosis, and as well as like what is the solution? And it's obviously not all on Duchamp, but what do you think needs to be fixed exactly so that we can get back on track? I know that's a loaded question, by the way.
Yeah. So first, I don't think the Weber Sherratt pairing works against every single opponent. So you definitely need a little bit more puck movement there with Weber, and someone who can cover for him if he ends up, beaten a little bit. But the big thing is like there's Jeff Petry's the only elite level puck moving defenseman on the decor. So it's not for Romanov's so young, so we can't count on him fully for a lot of that. That's definitely an area of improvement. Like we still haven't replaced Markov. He's been gone for like 4 or 5 years now. That was just such a huge loss. And then this you can't really fix this. It's inexperience down the middle. The guys are so young. They're just maybe it's just they're getting worn down by a lot of these teams in the North Division who have stacked lineups down the middle. Like that'd be a lot to ask for two young kids. That will improve over time. You just got to deal with it. But I think definitely something that would immediately fix this team is a defenseman, other than Jeff Petrie, who could quarterback a power play or quarterback a cycle and make those good plays along the blue line in the offensive zone.
I mean, to your point, like I saw in the beginning of the season, Romanov was playing on the power play, and he was quarterbacking it. And I'd really like to see him again on the power play. And I feel like we haven't. I don't know if he's played on the power play since the first whatever it was, like 5-6 games of the season. But I thought he was really promising on the power play, and he could be a good option to. I know he's young, and we have like a pretty young team, but I mean, I feel like people are kind of forgetting that like we missed the playoffs last year. It's not like we're like a team that's there and is just ready to win the cup, right? Like, I feel like we're just with the expectations are so high, and we still have all these young players that still need to develop, still need to kind of find their place in the NHL, find their place, like find how to play in the NHL. So I think it's been good to have like these players kind of have the opportunity to do it, but we have to be patient with them. And we have to maybe take some chances and do that. So,
I mean, if we're calling for these guys to get more minutes and then they do, and then it leads to mistakes here and there and losses or whatever, we got to live with it. But that's the thing. Got to live or die by the young players right now, I think, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we're in a weird spot where it's like we have young players with tons of potential and then like older players that are kind of getting over the hump. And we kind of want to squeeze it in where we have a kind of mix of both, and our window is closing and opening at the same time. So it's just a weird dynamic to have, but that's the reality, and we have to kind of, I guess, deal with it the way we can.
I mean, the big issue too is right now, like no one's going really. Like when you think about it, like Carey Price at 10.5 million, like, you know, everybody knows he has the capabilities. But, you know, if you want young guys to develop, you need a $10.5 million goalie to be a $10.5 million goalie to, you know, sustain those errors. And Jake Allen has been providing those performances. And then when you see that, you see the difference in the game. And then after that, you know, we speak about, you know, maybe Shea Weber, but Jeff Petrie, you know, we come back to the beginning of the season. And we spoke about this on the podcast as well, is that beginning of the season, there's three things that were going. Is the fact that your centers, like Nick Suzuki was playing right on par with how he was in the bubble. And obviously he's a young guy, so it's normal that he's going to step back. And it's the same thing with maybe a little bit of Jesperi Kotkaniemi, where he's not at the exact same level. And then add to this is that Phil Danault has disappeared, literally missing, MIA, and all of your guys... Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And even defensively, screening Jake Allen last night, fuck, like, come on. But my point is that, like, Jeff Petrie was, like, Norris conversation. All of these guys are not there to kind of shield the people that need the time to develop and make those mistakes. It's like, if Kotkaniemi loses the puck, it's going to go in because Carey Price is not making that key save right now. I think that we can come back to that, but without that piece in your veterans, those performances, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be a shit season if it continues that way. So I don't know how it's going to get resolved unless those guys step up. Alex, do you have any? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, how frustrating is it to watch Carey Price get goal support and lose, and then Jake Allen stand on his head and not get any goal support?
No, it seems like it's not even we're watching the Canadiens anymore. Like it used to be for the last, whatever it was, 5 or 6 years. It was like Carey Price is the one to bail us out from these games where we score 1 or 2 goals. And now it seems like they flipped the script almost.
Yep.
But anyway, I don't know if we want to get into Carey Price or anything, but that's a whole
I was just going to ask Alex because it's tough, guys. Again, when it's remote, it's difficult to see the intent to speak. So, Alex, if there's anything that you wanted to add to that before we maybe move into another question here.
I mean, the only thing I was going to add on to when you guys were talking about the defense where Petrie's not there and Romanov not on the power play anymore, like we're not getting that offensive support from our defense. If you look at Montreal's past seasons, even when Markov was there, I'm not saying Petrie's on Markov's level, but Petrie doesn't really have support there from other D-men. I'm not blaming Romanov, like everyone said, he's super young. But we always had a guy like Mark Streit or even Nathan Beaulieu, who's horrible defensively, but he helped the offense a bit. Marc-Andre Bergeron, those guys. Like we always had that odd either free agent signing or veteran defenseman could help out offensively. I think that's really noticeable with Weber slowing down and Petrie having this rough stretch of games that we just don't have that. It seems like a lot of the zone exits are the winger gets the puck. He's not moving. The pass isn't fantastic. It's not really tape to tape. They're kind of stretching for it, and then it's just a dump in. I mean, last game looked better. The cycle was going pretty good. What we have, like 40 shots on net, 41 shots on net. They were getting good offensive time, but it just feels like that defensive aspect has really been missing.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I mean, again, you know, we're hoping that it comes back to what it was, but this is where my other question comes in here. And Matt, I'd like you to start us off. But do you think that the Habs, what happened in the beginning of the season there, the first 10 games were legitimately, you know, we were planning the parade. You know, phone calls were being made. We were shutting down Crescent Street. We're planning all the routes. And now we're to the point where we're literally worried that we're not going to make the playoffs. And this is a team that I think, I could be wrong on this, but I think everybody agrees is too good on paper to miss the playoffs, right? So where do you see the Habs realistically? You know, is it somewhere closer to the where we were at the beginning of the season, or is it closer to what we are right now?
Man, it's tough, especially now with the coaching change and whatnot. But they were just so good to start. And the one thing though that kind of concerned me early on in the season was all those penalty kill goals. Like that wasn't gonna. There's no way that was gonna be sustainable. So, and that was a lot of our offense coming from there, and that could have just been like obviously Lehkonen and Evans and whatnot were aggressive on the PK, but it could also have just been teams cold, you know, making mistakes on their own power play, and we did a really good job capitalizing. But yeah, hard to say. I'd say it's somewhere in the middle. Like we've seen now the Montreal Canadiens face every team in the North Division, and early on we had only faced a select few. And I didn't want to believe that it was just because we were facing the Canucks and their poor defense, but turns out that might have been it. I do think, though, that the Habs can battle back. I mean, the roster isn't significantly different than it has been the last couple of years when we just missed the playoffs and when we've seen them face the Washingtons and the Blues and the Pens and fare very well against them. And then we go and add guys like Anderson and Allen and Toffoli. You'd think that, you know, we should have improved on that. So, it'll be interesting. We still got 6 games against the Leafs. Those are going to be huge ones. Someone brought up to me the other day that like hopefully the Leafs just keep winning because that means the rest of the teams in the division are losing, and that might actually help us out.
Good
Then
point.
if we can get those wins against the Leafs, you know, that could go a long way to bring us back up in the standings. But yeah, it's going to be tough to chase Edmonton now because they're kind of on a roll, and it does scare me that it's Calgary of all teams behind us because I think they're a lot better than how they've played so far, especially with Jacob Markstrom back there.
100%. And sorry, go ahead, Justin.
I'm just grateful that we did have the start to the season that we did, because at this point now, if we didn't have this kind of cushion, we'd be in it with Ottawa and being like, just wishing that we're gonna go on a 10-game winning streak or something to bring us back into the race. So at least now, like, we're just above 500, which is like obviously not great, but we're still in the race. It's not like it's not like it's over or anything. So I mean, I think we can still obviously make the playoffs. And yeah, like I mean, the beginning of the season, our PDO was probably through the roof. Our shooting percentage was up there like at 30% or so. So it was obviously going to come down. I just didn't think it would come down this hard and this quickly.
Oh, this is rock bottom for fuck's sake.
And in all aspects of our game too. Like, it seems like our defense, our offense, and our goaltending just kind of shit the bed all at the same time. And that's a pretty messy mess to clean up, you know. So
yeah, I think if we don't fix the power play, we're in big trouble. With the offensive talent some of these teams have, even Vancouver, as much as they're struggling, they have some good offensive weapons. Toronto, Edmonton are going to beat us if it comes to special teams. So I think if this doesn't get fixed, I think I saw a stat that in the last 2 years we're either second last cumulatively on the power play, which is pretty brutal. And I think that's what we need right now to win these games that we're losing by 2 goals, 1 goal. Like we've scored 1 power play goal, I think, in the last 6 games, and before that it was bad as well. Like you said, we're not getting the shorthanded goals anymore, so we need the special teams to step up somehow. It's just been terrible, and we need those goals.
I'm really hoping, that's a great point, and I'm really hoping that Ducharme is a big, reason why we do get it back on track. And because I just don't think Julien or Muller, whoever was running it, was putting the players in a position to utilize their strengths. It goes back to what I said earlier. I think that's that one specific area, and it was kind of weird. I was hoping it would help on 3-on-3, but last night it was kind of weird how that played out. But I'm really hopeful that Ducharme will put guys in a place where they're utilizing their strengths, and it'll be a lot more deceptive. And it was like, even when the power play changed under Julien and Muller, it just never get any, wasn't cohesive, and there was just no chemistry out there. And that's all I got.
Yeah, no, and one thing that I we spoke about Ducharme, being part of this group here, leading this group, of course, but I also really like the fact that you have a guy like Alex Burrows as well, that has been a player recently that can maybe talk again, like and change the mindset, and that guy was like a hard-nosed guy to play against, and I really like that type of voice to be given to these youngsters that need to change their mindset, because I know it's a cliche, and a lot of people don't like to hear these type of like it's not unless it's like concrete. It's usually kind of these vague type of things that we use, but mindset is a big thing for me, and especially on a power play, a mindset can change the look of how dangerous your team is. If you got a guy that's like, well, I'm gonna just pass because it's part of our system, or like, no, I want to really score here. Like, I want to fucking find the net. And I'm hoping that this change in voices with Alex Burrows and Ducharme, can fix that. But at the end of the day, I think that it comes back down that you need the Canadians are only going to be good if they fire on all cylinders. And right now, it's all out of sync. You got guys that you need to step up that aren't stepping up. And until you got everyone going, this is a team that's built on its depth. And if you remove that, it doesn't have depth, which is the problem right now. So I think that pretty much I know that you're limited on time here, Matt. So let's get into the last portion here. I really appreciate the analysis and the time here, but we're going to do a fun one, not an easy one. So go with it. And Senators fans, we apologize in advance if we anger you. We're going to try to be as least biased, at least I think so, as we can. But Justin, please set up the next Would You Rather with Scotian Canadien.
Yeah, so here, Would You Rather, if you don't know, is just a little segment where we put 2 players against each other and say who we'd rather have on our team at this point in time. So we don't have to go in the past or in the future. We could just evaluate them for what they are now, I guess. But I guess, I mean, we could talk about their potential. I guess it's
you can talk literally about anything that makes your point.
Look, you can say,
yeah, literally, 100%.
Obviously, for people who aren't listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, this week what we have is Brady Tkachuk versus Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Obviously, Jesperi picked 3rd. And Brady Tkachuk picked 4th in the 2018. Was it 2018 or 2019 draft? 2018.
2018. Yeah.
Yeah. So very close. Obviously, the Habs could have had Tkachuk if they wanted to pick him. So yeah, let's start it. Let's get it started here.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Is my camera fucked up for you guys too?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know what that is.
Dude, okay, so this is gonna make it into now. It's working. Now it's working.
Perfect.
Okay, beauty. All right, sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Now it's working. So yeah, start us off here, Matt, and you can use again if it's just right now performance potential, all of these things.
Okay.
And please be careful because I've got Kotkaniemi jersey. I know that you're a big fan as well. So.
It's so tough, and like just seeing the way Brady's playing right now is like how do you not pick him? And I love both Tkachuks. the moment that we passed on him and took Kotkaniemi, like I was excited about the Kotkaniemi pick, but just the thought of having to deal with Brady for the next 10, 15 years was brutal. And sure enough, it has been. And him, Stutzla, and Josh Norris look really strong together right now. And Brady is like the consistency that this kid has. Like every season so far, he's finished around 45 points. Like, and I love seeing that in a player, just that pinpoint consistency in their output. And he just brings so much to the game. Now, so obviously right now, if I had to pick, it'd be Brady for sure. And he's got plenty of potential too. Like, but the thing is, we all knew he was more NHL ready coming in. Right off the bat, we knew Kotkaniemi was going to be a project. He's playing the harder position, no doubt. He's not getting nearly as many minutes. And he was a tall, lanky kid. And that's what he was drafted at. He needed to fill out. And we know the type of game that he likes to play. He likes to be aggressive in the corners and use the size to muscle past people, and he doesn't quite have the size yet to do that. He falls a little bit too easily. He's a little awkward sometimes, but the more he matures, I think he's going to become a really special player. One of these guys, and I compared him to Getzlaf in the past. Not flashy, but just does everything very, very well. And you're just not sure what you're going to get from him on any given night because he's just good at everything. I don't know. So in the long term, I'd go Kotkaniemi, and that's hoping that he does reach his ceiling. But yeah, definitely right now it's Brady.
Good answer. Who's next here? Alex, I want to get your take because you're a little bit more unapologetic when it comes to our Habs players usually.
No, I mean I love Kotkaniemi, but I'd pick Brady Tkachuk for sure. I think he's everything you want in a player, right? He's the reason we love Brendan Gallagher. Tkachuk is basically Brendan Gallagher, but bigger. He seems to be developing points wise as well. Like his stats line there is pretty good. Like Matt was saying, pretty consistent ever since he started in the NHL. I think he's been top 10 in the league in both shots and hits in every season since he's started. And I think he's just one of those guys that when the team's not going, he's there to pick everyone else up and get people playing, right? Exactly like Gallagher. Whereas Kotkaniemi, I can see developing into a player like Getzlaf, a 60, 70, maybe even 80-point guy if he reaches the top of his potential. But I don't think he's one of those guys who makes the rest of the team better. I think Tkachuk, you know what you're getting every single night. Yeah, he might take some dumb penalties sometimes, but especially in the playoffs too, I think he's exactly the kind of guy you want. Like I said, I hope Kotkaniemi develops. I love him as a player. I want to see him succeed, but I'd pick Tkachuk.
Justin,
No,
that was a
Matt,
good answer,
you
by
go
the way.
first.
Me? Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I'm the
fair
host
enough.
of the segment. Come on.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right. I mean, you guys said it. I think that there's too many ifs right now with Kotkaniemi to be like saying like Jesperi Kotkaniemi for this segment. However, what I will say, and you brought it up, Matt, is he's a centerman, and I don't think Brady Tkachuk, just because of his position, is as valuable. And I'm a centerman stroker. I 100% take that on. But when you look at teams that need a player, I think that the value that Jesperi Kotkaniemi could potentially bring to your team at the most important position is something that you need to take into consideration in this. And I know that Sens fans are going to be like, you're a fucking idiot. It doesn't matter. For me, there's a huge part here that as a centerman and the skills that Jesperi Kotkaniemi is showing at the tender age of what? He just turned 20, like recently. He's like one of these 10th youngest player in the league. So there's a lot of questions, but I do think that, again, in the long run, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, for the value that you're getting for an NHL team, is why I would choose him. But for now, again, Brady Tkachuk. So a little bit of a redundant answer here, but that's why.
Yeah. So, I mean, good answers from all of you. I think everything's pretty logical. I think Brady Tkachuk is kind of one of those players that you hate playing against, but you love on your team. And any team would love to have him. Like a Darcy Tucker or Marchand or Gallagher.
Tom Wilson.
Exactly. all of those kinds of players that kind of have an impact on the energy of the team and also on the score sheet, which is like a huge plus. The only thing I'd say about Brady Tkachuk versus Jesperi is that Brady Tkachuk came up on a bottom of the bucket Ottawa Senators team. So he was kind of given the creativity and the ice time to do whatever he really wanted and to develop at his own pace on a team that really had no business even winning, getting to the playoffs or winning games. So that's the only reason I would say that I think his numbers and maybe his development is a bit maybe
Skewed.
overstated skewed compared to Jesperi Kotkaniemi's, who was on, I mean, still a shitter of a team on the Habs, but he played more of a role of being a support player instead of being like that player that's like, we want to hype this player up to be one of our top forwards, to play 20 minutes a night and get all the power play time that's possible. So I really think that like the numbers are a bit skewed, and if Jesperi Kotkaniemi maybe got the same opportunities as Brady Tkachuk, the numbers might be different and we might be having a different conversation. But having said that, right now I'd say Brady Tkachuk, but I think like Matt said, in the future I want to say Jesperi Kotkaniemi.
It is a Habs podcast. I mean, it's gonna get there.
It's a Habs podcast, but all four of us picked Brady Tkachuk right now.
Yes,
right?
but the long run, the dream is Kotka.
I mean,
Yeah.
You gotta go there.
Imagine the center depth if we had Tkachuk instead of Kotkaniemi. I guess there'd be a lot of different things might have happened over the last couple of years, but
that's
the
it.
center depth position would still be looking real bad right now, especially considering how Deneau has kind of hit a wall.
Exactly.
I have one regret though, or at least I would hope one regret that the team has with Kotkaniemi's development, and that is not sending him to the World Juniors. I think he would have benefited so much to dominate at that tournament, like once, if not twice. That confused me big time. Just figured I'd put that in there.
Yeah,
It's a really good point. I mean, obviously, you look at what, Nick Suzuki going down to the OHL, tearing it up in the playoffs, and what that brought to him coming into this team. And obviously, when you look you look at the progression of Nick Suzuki, just because we're on the topic here, obviously, Would You Rather is over. So, but my point being here is that when we lost Matt here. We're going to get back.
My bad.
It's all good. But yeah, so I think that when we look at the progression, obviously it would have been great to just, even that stint that he did in the AHL did him wonders. So coming back into the bubble, just having a different mindset, playing under Joël Bouchard. So, we'll see in the long run. It's tough to do these would you rathers with young players because it all plays out, but Matt, this was awesome. We really, really thank you for your time. I know we went a little bit over here, but just an absolute pleasure to have you on. And again, guys, I'm going to let you maybe do all of the plugs necessary, but this is a guy that has been, again, the face of, the Habs community on Reddit. I've been following your fucking Reddit comments when you were Matt Bedard back then. And honestly, just please go ahead, because anybody who doesn't know Scotian Canadien, you really should, because it's just great work that he does.
I really appreciate the support, guys. I'm just another fan, just like you guys. I started it because I needed, a hobby in my life, and I couldn't have imagined it kind of taking off to the level it has so far, and just kind of still treating it like that. I'm doing it for fun, nothing more. And I'm really glad to be able to come on and speak with good people like you guys. I really appreciate the invite, and glad to be here, and was happy to do this.
Yeah, well, thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you, man. It's like I love your post game things when we win the game and we hear you go woo, like that's just like exactly how I'm feeling like when you have so much passion going for you, and it's awesome to see.
Yeah. Again, a huge thank you. Again, Scotian Canadien. Follow him on YouTube. He's also on podcast right now. Right, all of your format has been into podcast form now. Right, people can find you there. So I'm actually going to let you maybe go on with any other plugs that you want to do for your channel.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, just Scotian Canadien on YouTube. I've somehow not missed a game this year, despite being crazy busy with the kids at home. So yeah, on YouTube, and then I just put it in podcast form, just so that ease of access type of thing. And I'm working with High Button in Nova Scotia right now. We sit down every Thursday and do a back and forth, and I'm with two Leafs fans, so I get kind of lit up here and there and shit talk quite a bit. But especially now with how it's going. But so that's a lot of fun. So you can check that out too.
Awesome. Well, again, Matt, Scotian Canadien, again, a huge thank you for joining us tonight. We're hoping that the Habs turn the ship, but hopefully we can have you back on, because we really appreciate it, and just a pleasure to have you. So without further ado, we'll come back to the episode, and cheers.
Cheers.
A huge thank you to the Scotian Canadien. What a great interview that was, and just a pleasure to just speak with such a knowledgeable Habs fan such as himself. So a huge thank you to Matt, and hoping to have him back to talk a little bit about the Habs again. So again, if you guys don't know the Scotian Canadien, please go and follow him on YouTube, because he's a guy that puts in a ton of work. You can just sense the passion that he has and everything that he does when it comes to the Habs, and just like on point with so much of his analysis. So mad respect to you, Matt. And yeah, that pretty much does it for the interview and today's show. But joined back now with Justin and Alex. We're going to talk a little bit about what's coming up. And it's a copier-coller, right, of last week, which was Ottawa and then the Jets twice. So guys, let's talk about it here. That's the week where we're actually right about our predictions potentially?
I think I've been predicting like domination by the Habs the last like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So this week, I'm not going to let up. We're going to go 3-0. It's going to happen this time. We know these teams. We played them last week.
Oh, God.
We're going to beat the Sens. It's going to be easy. Trust me. Because you know what? Jesperi Kotkaniemi is way better than Brady Tkachuk. No questions asked. Would have taken him 3 times out of 4.
Like it.
In the draft.
Callback.
Yeah, and the Jets just not good enough for the Habs. I think it's going to be, the Jets are obviously a better team than the Sens, and they're going to give us more of a fight. But I think like last week showed, like we did play a lot better than the Jets, and we really, I think, dominated in the second game and deserved the win. So I think we can win against the Jets. Like I think as a whole, we're a better team. Obviously, they're on like a 4-game winning streak right now, and we're on a 5-game losing streak. So it doesn't seem like it. But I think that we can, and Dominic Ducharme's going to break through this week, and we're actually going to get started on our tear for the rest of the season.
I like it. Alex?
I'm going to surprise you guys this week. I'm going to go 3-0 as well. I think we're going to destroy Ottawa. I'm guaranteeing at least 6 goals against Ottawa. And I think for the week, we will score at least 15. I think people are going to luck this week. I think Drouin is going to score a couple. So yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to destroying Ottawa, and let's get a streak going.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to come at this a little bit differently. I think the Habs are going to have 3 shutouts in a row.
Jeez.
No, I'm kidding. I think to be more fair, because I don't want to get caught in my blind optimism, which I have done in the past on this podcast quite a bit. I'll be the first to admit it when it comes to these game predictions. So I think what I will say, if I'm going to be cautiously optimistic, I think the Habs will have a point in each game. But I think it's going to be 2-0-1. So I think we're going to win against Ottawa, we're going to win against the Jets, but we're going to lose again in overtime because Dano didn't win the face-off.
Man, you're so cautious. 5 points instead of 6. Really cautious.
It's cautious. Well, I mean, I could have went balls deep with the shutouts, so I tried to hold that back.
This is Mackie at his most pessimistic when it comes to Habs.
Yeah, 100%.
5 out of 6 points.
Guys, at the end of the day, like, come on, like, if we're gonna be a Habs podcast and you're gonna say like the Habs are gonna lose 0-3, this type of turn is gonna just get worse and worse. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I treat my fandom as something that a little bit more light. I try to give the benefit of the doubt. I look for the good stuff. So if I'm gonna get roasted for it, go ahead. I mean, this is just the way I view things. That's all I'm gonna say. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for listening. If you guys can, it would be greatly appreciated if you give us a follow, a subscribe on YouTube, maybe just a review. If you guys are enjoying the content, it'd be greatly appreciated. We're trying to grow the podcast as much as we can and keep at it, of course, regardless. So if you're lurking, if you're commenting, if you're listening and enjoying, it'd be greatly appreciated. But we love you either way. We enjoy doing this. So without further ado, I don't know.
Yeah. Also, if you don't like our takes, feel free to roast us. Like, if you think Mackie, Alex, or I are out in the shot, as we say,
it's always
mostly
me,
Mackie for sure.
Yeah.
Well, he gets roasted enough by us too, so it's let's give him a break. But yeah, I mean, we're always active on Twitter and stuff, so comment, reply to everything, and we'll see you on here because we'll shout you out.
Yeah, 100% the shout out. I mean, if you could stay respectful, I'd appreciate it. It's
a no respect podcast, bud.
You're right. You're right. As our big chief Mike Bergevin once said, there's no respect here. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you. And for Alex, for Justin, and for myself, Mackie, always reminding you to respect
the Orgasm Nation.
It was a little bit slow, but have a good one, guys. All right, go Habs, go.